So we're going to talk about Sunderland in a second, but just a quick point on where we're up to. We've got 10 games left, and I think everyone knows that. But I don't think people have actually put into perspective just how comfortable our run is, on paper anyway, the teams we're playing. And people will say, oh, no Premier League game's easy, and I get you. That's completely fair. But would you rather have 8 of your final 10 games against teams in the bottom 11 of the league, Bournemouth and below? Or would you rather have 8 of your final 10 games against the top 11 in the league? I know which one I'd rather have. And Leeds, their third hardest game is Bournemouth away. I don't think that is the case because Brentford at home is easier and they're 7th in the league. But I just think people haven't realised just how good that is. It's Man United is the only game left where I'd be like, yeah, we probably will lose this one. The rest of them we should be looking to get points out of. And that is a really good place to be when we're sat on 31 points, which is our most since the season we finished 9th under Bielsa. We had 36 at this stage of that season. And it's comfortably more than the season we were relegated. We had 26. The season we stayed up in 17th, we had 23. The season we went down in 2004, we had 22. We're way ahead. And everyone knows about kind of where points projections are coming from below us as well and how teams got on today. I think that was another part of what made this weekend more palatable, Martin. Losing to City's one thing, losing another team's catching up was another. And we saw Spurs lose, we saw Forest lose, we saw West Ham lose. West Ham in particular lost heavily, so we've got a bit more goal difference on them. It still ended up being a pretty good weekend on a weekend where we finished off our hardest game and we lost, but only by 1 goal. So I'm feeling really good about us, and I know you are as well. But if anyone is worried, I don't think you need to be. And I'm not saying we'll win loads and loads and loads of these final 10, but we should be getting 3 or 4 wins minimum. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. So feeling good. Any other points, or can we move on to Sunderland?
We can move on to Sunderland.
Right. We don't really need to discuss too much. We know them well enough. We came up with them. These bastards.
You really don't like Sunderland, do you?
No, I have other reasons not to like them, which I'm not going to go into on a podcast. Regis Lebris is their manager, as he was last season. That hasn't changed. They are above us this season when they weren't last season. That is the only thing that has changed. However, Martin, they are 12th and 6 points ahead of us. So it's not a 6-pointer because it's not a relegation 6-pointer, but it is an opportunity to move 3 behind them if we beat them. And that is, for me, massive, and what makes this a pretty big game. Not a must-win game, not by any means a must-win game, but a pretty big game because I would love to be the newly promoted team that finishes the highest this season. So Sunderland then, obviously they started the season on fire, Martin, and they were flying high at one point. They were in the top 3, 4, 5 in the league for a little while. It's not been so pretty since then, has it? And they have started to slide down the table. So what's the form been like?
Yep, not good. So in the past 10 games, they are 18th for points picked up. So they've only picked up 9 points in the last 10 games. The only 2 clubs who have picked up less points than them is Burnley with 7 and Spurs with 4. Oh, that is only 9 games that they've played. So I'll give them that.
4 points from 9 games is good, is it?
Yeah, it's good. No, obviously it's not. It's tragic. It is, to be honest, and it makes me smile because my brother-in-law is a Spurs fan, and yeah, I can laugh at him about it. But yeah, anyway, we're not here to talk about Spurs. But yeah, Sunderland have not been great. They have only won 2 games in the last 10, drawn 3 and lost 5 in those games. They have had some tough games, to be fair to them. They've had a City, who they drew against, Spurs, who they drew against, Brentford. Yeah, I know we have, but just saying. Got to give them that. Brentford, they lost 3-0 to. Palace, they won 2-1. West Ham, they lost. So that is a big one. Lost 3-1 to West Ham. Beat Burnley 3-0. Lost against Arsenal 3-0. Lost against Liverpool 1-0. Lost against Fulham at home.
Both of those. They were unbeaten at home until they played those games, and then they lost them both back-to-back. Lovely stuff.
Yes, and then the most recent one against Bournemouth, 1-1, and that was away. So yeah, not great form for them going into
what I will
this
note
game.
On this little thing you've got in front of me here, I'm seeing the captain for those games, and I will say that other than the Burnley game, they went on a run where Granit Xhaka was not the captain and it was Trey Hume, who's not as good as Jadon Bogle, by the way, but that's besides the point. But they lost 4 of those 5 games when Granit Xhaka was out, and then he comes back and they get a draw. It's not that surprising that he makes the big impact on that team. He's easily their best player, and we will come on to talk about him. Talk to me about sort of expected points over this period, Martin, because even though you just described our fixtures and their fixtures, our fixtures in this period, and we've got more points and more expected points in this period. We had also, since the turn of the year, Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, Manchester City, Arsenal in 6 of those 10 games. I might be missing another good team there, but like that is a horrible run of games, and we've got more points than them in that.
We have indeed. So in that period, our points was 11. And expected points was 12.3. So we've slightly underperformed.
Can't get 0.3 of a point.
You know. But yeah, and then Sunderland have also underperformed what they should have got. So 10.8 was their expected points, and they only got 9. So theirs was pretty much 11 points. So that's nearly a 2-point underperformance there. So, but earlier in the season, they were having an overperformance. So,
yes.
So what are those 4 words, Adam?
Well, I was going to just say variance. I like that one. There's a one word.
Regress to the mean. It's a big thing at the moment. But yeah, Villa especially. There's one tweet which someone put out recently about the way their expected goal difference has regressed to the mean, and it's just fantastic. I can't remember who it was who tweeted it, but it was like a graph, and it showed the 2 lines, how they was really far apart, and then just sort of gradually converged to the recent results where, they're not doing that great for that.
We sound like haters right now, and I guess there is a little bit of that. But at the same time, like, we've had hard games and we've got more expected points and more points than them. Over the season, we've got more expected points and less points than them. So it's been nice in that sense just to catch up a little bit. I don't necessarily think that Regis Labrise is a poor manager and he's doing a terrible job and their squad's rubbish and all of that, and they should be way lower down the table. But I also think they did overperform and they were running a bit too hot, and it's nice to see them come a bit closer to probably what their actual true level is, which is around the part of the table that we're in. So I like that. Anything else on that, or can we talk about in and out of possession now?
We can talk about in and out of possession now.
Go.
Yeah, so the in possession first, they quite heavily used a 4-2-3-1 throughout the season. They have had some games where they've gone with a more of a 4-3-3 shape, or 4-1-4-1 if you want to call it that. But they're still very similar to what they were in the Championship at their best, when they're able to transition, and when they're expected to have the ball, they don't really know what to do with it. But yeah, that is Regis Labrise in a nutshell. Excellent at coaching a mid-block counter-attacking side, but when his team does have to possess the ball and take the lead in a game and try to control it, that's where they kind of tend to fall apart. They want to attack quickly and get the ball to the final third quickly, make best use of their pacey wide players, and that's also something which they've also got in other areas. They're a hard-working side. There are some parallels to us and them in certain ways, but it's mainly about the effort levels is what I'm talking about here, which they do have a hard-working side, and that's epitomised by the midfield duo of Xhaka and whoever his counterpart will be, Diarra. Is that their first choice, Diarra?
Probably.
I think.
Him or Siddiqui, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, but they are quite close in levels, to be fair. But yeah, they've got a hard-working midfield. They've got an aggressive centre-back pairing in Ballard and O'Nien. Is it Alderete who's their first choice? Alderete, yeah. And then they've got Trey Hume, Trey Hume. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean,
I
get why he's there.
I don't like Trey Hume, and he's incredibly overrated by their fans.
I agree, because he's an intangibles guy. He's a really big tackle, lots of effort and energy. Which he's
their Stuart Dallas, I think.
Yeah, like he worked his socks off, and he is Northern Irish as well, actually, funnily enough. And is a captain. Obviously, he's the vice captain, so like he does tick a few boxes in that sense. He's also quite young. He's about 24, but like, I agree. Like, technically, he's so overrated compared to someone like Bogle, who's just like years ahead of him.
Even defensively, I don't rate him that much. Big tackles, and then quite often those big tackles can be big fouls given away and getting yellow cards. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Trey Hume. The other side, Mukiele he's obviously an excellent fullback.
Yeah.
You can't really deny he's an
Funny
excellent
because
fullback.
he's centre back or right back and looks really good in both. He's really, really good footballer. So.
He's a bit of a monster, really.
Yeah, he is. He's had a great season. He's out, so that's good. He will be injured for this one.
Yeah, he's obviously not the best right back that a promoted side purchased this season, right? We know who that was, and the best ever to be signed by.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to just bed that in there. The best signing for a promoted side ever is playing for Burnley. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll talk about them out of possession a tiny bit more. Yeah, the one thing that I think we have to say here, a lot of people will talk about how they've overperformed their expected goals figure, and that's unsustainable. I agree. I'm not going to dispute that. The side of it that I think is a bit more sustainable is the defensive side, because Sunderland are actually the team that low block the most in terms of percentage in the league. Now, they are a bit mid-blocky as well. They do a bit of that. But low block is one of the main ways, especially when they get the lead. That's when they do this. That's when they enact this. When they're in a level game state, it's probably going to be more of a mid-block. When they're in a winning game state, they're going to be more of a low block. When they do this, they really, really pack out the pitch in that area and they make it very difficult. And actually, like, people will say, oh, but they're overperforming their expected goals figures. A, they've got a good goalkeeper, so that helps. And B, one of the things they do is they basically mean that, like, teams have to have a lot of low quality chances around the edge of the box, and they accumulate. Of course they do, but that makes it a bit more sustainable when you're giving up, let's say, a 0.08, a 0.12, a 0.07. Like, that's much better than giving up one big 0.3, 0.4 chance, and they don't give up as many of those. So defensively, they are pretty good, and those are the numbers that kind of have a bit more sustainability to them. It's the attacking numbers and the in-possession stuff that I don't really like.
Stinky.
Very stinky indeed. Their main way of attacking, we'll get into this now with in-possession, is obviously to play not really direct, but fairly direct. They have ways of going into, like, strikers like Brobby and Isidore, who are pretty good at running channels and pretty physical, so they can hold the ball up that way, particularly Brian Brobby, who I absolutely love. And then, obviously, they have kind of Xhaka that you can get on the ball. He can play a nice diagonal pass. They do like to play quite vertically, but they also like to kind of switch balls a lot to, fullbacks and wingers that are pushing on, and they get Xhaka on the ball, and he plays those lovely little left to right diagonal out to a right winger running onto the ball. They can get into good positions through that as well. But that's the main way in terms of general play, and when they have to face teams sat a bit deeper, they do not look good at all. They're a massive eyesore, probably the second worst attacking team in the league when it comes to that side of things after Burnley, I would say. So yeah, anything else you want to add on kind of their in possession stuff, Martin?
No, I think we've covered it all quite well there. They've not changed a whole lot since the Championship. They've just really continued doing what they were doing in the Championship, because they were never a front-footed, possession-heavy side in the Champo, and they've continued not being a possession-heavy side in the Premier League. So it just meant they've had to adapt less than what us and Burnley, say, have had to adapt, although Burnley are Burnley and Burnley are crap. But yeah.
Rubbish.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. Yeah, Sunderland are a lot better than them, let's put it that way. This is why Xhaka coming back was so key for them, because it's not just those switches of play, it's not just the intangibles like his leadership and his character and all those kind of things. He is also, like, their best midfielder in build-up. It's not to say that Sadiki and Diarra aren't pretty good in their own right on the ball, and they're good ball carriers, but they're not the same. Like, he can actually receive from centre-backs if they need him to and do that kind of thing. So when he was out, it was like, who's doing anything? Who's doing any of that? It was like, you're going to have to just go from A to B pretty quickly and just get the ball to a striker or a winger to battle for it, to run into a channel. That was their main way. So there's some sustainability to it, I would say. Under Regis Labrise, he has got form for this in other leagues, and like you say, like, it wasn't too dissimilar from what they were doing last season in the Championship. So it's like, it was probably quite easy to coach into this team this season, and probably part of the reason why they were able to start fairly well, even with a lot of signings, has to be said. Do you think there'll be any changes to usual against us? I think the main thing is that they're going to have to deal with the pressure of the crowd. And I am thinking back to that game, which was almost exactly a year ago, Martin, when they came here. They scored quite early and they just sat very deep and soaked up a lot of chances and pressure around the box. And I didn't like that. So I hope they're not like that for the whole game, and I hope they don't score first for sure. But Do you think they might play like that even when it's a level game state, or do you think there'll be something else to it?
I don't think they'll change anything. I think this football is the only thing which Reggie Slabine knows how to coach. So I can't see there being any changes. Like, say what you will about Daniel Farker, but he at least has different ways of attacking now. Well, we wouldn't have said that at the start of the season, but he has proven it that he can coach differently and go more direct when he needs to. But yeah, I don't see Reggie Slabine as pulling out something different in this one. I think he will stick with what has worked for Sunderland so far this season, and they'll have moments where they'll be aggressive, but largely they will be sitting in the low block and looking to frustrate us and attack quickly in transition when they do win the ball. So we have to be aware of that and not giving their players a space to attack us.
Yep, for sure. In terms of like, we're going to go into stats later, but I just want to jump in for a second. I just was curious. Expected goals conceded, they're only 1.6 better than us, but they've conceded 13 less. So a bit of variance, bit of Robin Roofs being a pretty good goalkeeper, going right for them. And that brings me on nicely to the lineup, because the good thing here, Martin, I know that they just got a draw that was a pretty decent draw against Bournemouth. The good thing is they do have quite a few injuries to some key players, so they are going to have to play something a little bit different to what they did in the reverse fixture, and in some areas they definitely don't look as good as they have in this season at times. So what do you reckon it's going to look like?
So the players who are out is Bobby, Mukiele,
Massive.
Renildo,
Massive.
And Tabi.
Don't know.
No, I have no idea. I saw that name and I was like, who is that? Honestly. I know they've got Talby, but they've also got Tabi.
Lovely. I think they're both wingers as well.
Yeah, it's just like, what? You can have players who have got different combinations of letters in their surnames, you are aware. But yeah, the players I think it'll be Robin Rose in goal, Geertruida at right back, Ballard and Alderete centre back, Trey Hume at left back, Siddiqui and Xhaka in midfield, then Talby, not Tabi, Talby at right wing, and Diarra as the attacking mid, Lefay as the left winger, Mayenda up front, but it could be Isidore. I'm going to go for Mayenda, but that one is the only one that I wasn't too sure on, and there could be some variations to where the players will look to sit in midfield. Could look more of a 4-3-3 at times, but yeah, that's the players who I think they'll go for with the injuries they've currently got.
Can't disagree. I think it probably will be Isidore, even though Mayenda did just score. I think Reggie Slabine will play maybe into the fact that Isidore scored at Elland Road and he has got experience of playing there from the start. So I think I'd probably pick them for that. Can't really say anything else. So other than that, biggest threat from that, I mean, Roos is obviously a goalkeeper that they will probably want to look to hold on to, but he's probably worth a lot more now because of how good he's been so far. He's a really, really good player. Xhaka, we've already been over. So it's more looking at where the weaknesses are. I think the midfield is interesting. Well, I think that's one of their strongest parts when they've got those three players, but they're not the most you basically Siddiqui and Diarra, smaller, but really agile, nimble, full of energy, full of running, both pretty athletic for their size as well. And then Xhaka is the opposite. He's a bit more physical, a bit stronger, but quite slow. So they've got a bit of nice balance there. But there are weaknesses in each of those games and strengths in each of those games. But I guess that's the point. They do try to balance that off each other. I don't particularly love their wingers there. With the injuries they've got, I think they could have done better there. At Tybee, I've only seen one game of his, so I can't comment too much. But Lefay's slow. Talby is decent, but he's young, and there's definitely a lot of developing to do. So the midfield's a bit of a funny one, I would say. Defence to me looks pretty strong, other than, like you said, Hume's playing at left back, and he's right-footed. And I know he's done it for a while this season, but it's not natural for him. And he does try to go up the line, but it's not always natural for him to do that when you've got a right footer in front of you who's also inverting. So I think that's a bit stinky, the way that kind of looks. They're just not going to have much progression down there. And then, as we said with Hume, he's just not the very best defender in the world, despite the fact that he's very passionate. So there are weak points. I think the other side of their defence is stronger in terms of box defending, which is Geertruida and Ballard. Getrauda's coming in for Mukile, and he's also looked really good. He nearly joined Liverpool in January, but he didn't in the end. So that side's a bit stronger, but the other side, and I've just praised Leeds' right side against Man City in the first half of the pod. I'm thinking that that's an area we can try to get at them. But yeah, I've got over quite a few things there. But is there any ones you particularly find strong or weak from that?
No, I don't think there's anyone else who I'd like to know. The midfield's good. The defenders are okay for where they are in the league, but I wouldn't have either of them over our centre backs, if I'm totally honest. Same for the fullbacks. I wouldn't have them over what we've got. Maybe Mukiele, him and Bogle. That's quite close.
Yeah, right. He could play right centre back in a 3. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be nice actually. Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, obviously the attacking players. Lefay, I don't really rate. I just don't think he's strong enough for this league and intense enough.
You're probably right, but he is having a really good season for them. But
yeah,
it's because he's so technical, so there's moments of brilliance that he comes with, yeah.
Jaden Bogle's going to mark him out of the game, don't worry.
Hopefully.
So I have him or James Justin. Probably James Justin, actually.
Honestly,
the guy marking him.
The big one is actually Brobby being out, because even though I like Isidore, and Mayenda's a pretty fun profile as well, quite quick and strong, Brobby's just an absolute animal. He's an ox. He's about the same height as me, but he is an absolute monster in terms of like getting at players and like making it difficult for them. I absolutely love him, and I know he's not got loads of goals for them, 6 or 7 I think he's got.
He's pretty thick,
but he's he's really hard to like get through, is what I would say. So yeah, I think that's everything there. So we'll talk about some stats stuff first. I just wanted to illustrate something we were talking about earlier before you do your big spiel, which is we were talking about how they like to set up, and they are 16th for possession in the entire league, which is obviously not very high, but the passivity of their press is really like borne out in the stats, in my opinion. 18th for fouls, so they're not really tackling people. 14th for tackles, so they're really not attacking, like going at people and trying to get the ball off them in those areas very much, unless they get very close to the box. 12th for interceptions as well, not great. Despite the fact they have so little of the ball, those are all quite low if you were to say, like, especially if you adjusted them for possession, they're all really low. And then the big one, and this really illustrates how they defend their box, 2nd for clearances. They just boot them out anytime it comes near.
No messing about.
Love to do it. They've got quite a few defenders. Ballard and Alderete are two really no-nonsense players in that sense. And Ballard is one of the best players aerially in the entire Premier League as well. So they will be able to kind of batter balls away. I remember the reverse fixture, Ballard was out, and we were happy about that. And this time we're happy about other players being out. So it's a bit of have some given to you and some taken away from you. But anyway, you do your stat spiel and we'll round this off.
So, yeah, there's a lot of stinky stuff here, especially in terms of the XG that they're creating. They're 18th in the league for open play XG, 0.96 per 90, so they're not even creating an average of 1 XG per 90. That's like relegation levels of stinky. And set piece XG, somehow even worse. They're 19th for set piece XG, 0.15 per 90 they're creating from that. Then open play XG difference, 17th, so slightly better, minus 0.5 for average open play XG difference. Open play XG against, a little better, 14th, so they're not quite as bad as what the XG for them is. Set piece XG against, pretty strong with that as well, 9th in the league. So
that's them.
Yeah, they're a little bit stronger at stopping chances, but when it comes to generating chances for themselves, they're really, really bad. Then in terms of some other interesting stats, they're actually 10th for high recoveries per 90, which I find quite interesting. So that means to me that they must have some games where they are really aggressive at home and generate a lot of high recoveries, and then in the games away from home, it'll be the stinkiest of stinky low blocks that you've ever seen away from home, which makes up for it because they're not doing a single high pressure all game. Then the high recoveries against, I didn't actually put this was what like point in the table, but it 4.61 against them. I think it was third most against them. So it's another side who we can get at with a high press. and you've already said the PPDA was 17th least aggressive. But off-ball pressure is 7th in the league. Off-ball pressure includes forcing opponents out of the final third and keeping the possession deep and intercepting passes. So what that means is they're quite good at, when the opponents do get to the final third, they force them to recycle it and go back into their own half. So that I think that is one of the things
so many
they do
players
well.
there. There's just like there's banks of 4 and 5 and everywhere. Yeah.
And then on the other side of the pitch, crosses into the box. They're 18th, so they really don't cross the ball at all.
I think we're 5th for that. We're 4th.
Yeah,
we're
we put in a lot of crosses. Yeah, we do. Field tilt, they are 17th for that. If you don't know what that is, field tilt is the amount of passes into the final third for each team, like compared. So the higher you are, it means you have more passes into the final third than what your opponent does, and theirs is 17th. Quite low. Average possession 16th, like I've already said. So yeah, there's a lot of stinky stats in there. Some not quite as stinky, but yeah, they definitely are starting to regress to that big old mean and looking closer to where they should be.
19th for touches in the opposition box, which is the similar one to the field tilt one. They just do not get forward that much.
Nope.
And like there were games this season at the start, I just remember, like, I'm not saying they didn't deserve to beat. It was the opening game of the season, West Ham. They beat them 3-0. They put up about 1 XG. And I watched the goals and I was just like, yeah, you've scored a couple of really amazing finishes here, but is this sustainable every game? And then they carried on for a while. I was like, bloody hell, maybe they've worked out football. Them and Villa have just worked out how to win football matches with rubbish numbers. But
the XG gods always take it back.
Eventually they do come back around. And I feel like that's a good point to end the Sunderland section and move on to the Leeds half of the analysis now. Right, let's talk about our lineup then. Obviously, this is a midweek game, Martin, but we do have Norwich over the weekend, and I expect more rotation for that, despite it being a big opportunity to get to an FA Cup quarter-final. I think the players like your Longstaffs and your Tanakas are going to come back in for that one. I don't feel like they're going to come back in here. So do you think there'll be much change to the lineup from the weekend against Man City, if any?
If the only thing I could see as being a change is if Rodon's injury, because he came off injured with a tight calf, I think it was. So he could come out for Biol. That's probably it. If Rodon's available, I think the lineup will be exactly the same.
As do I.
I can't see any difference. We're playing well. The team is gelled, and I can't really complain too much about it, if I'm totally honest.
We didn't talk about a couple of sub-performances on the first section, but there were a couple that interested me. One being Nonto. He came on. First thing he did was give the ball away and then give away a foul. That was great. But then after that, actually, I thought he
did really well.
I thought he was looking pretty bright, and I thought he was combining pretty well with players. His kind of release of pass was pretty good again around the box. Yeah, I think he did enough to warrant maybe getting more minutes here.
Not gonna happen.
I don't think he will. I think we'll stay the same. I think even though it's a game where we could probably have sacrificed a midfielder and play another forward, he won't do it. I think we'll still play the same, which means Stack slightly more advanced, which means Gruever and Ampadu in the centre, Aronson also slightly more advanced, and Calvert-Lewin as the main striker, and then the back five, like you say, the same unless Beale has to come in for Rodon.
I also think in this game we could afford to go back to the 4-2-3-1.
We could look very championship if we wanted to, probably.
Yeah, because if we could let us range a bit and go a bit more, but I don't think he will. I think it'll be the exact same formation, the exact same players. But yeah, I wouldn't mind the change. I wouldn't mind seeing some more of the attackers that we've got, but it's not going to happen. Willie Donto won't start another game this season unless we've got a lot of injuries.
Or a cup game.
Or a cup game, yeah. I think the only time Nonto will get on the pitch for the rest of the season will be if we are chasing a game. And that's it. He won't bring him off the bench if we're winning. Not going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, and I think it's actually the right decision because as much as Aronson has frustrated this pod a lot in the past, his work out of possession and is too much of a big part in what we've done this season and how aggressive we are out of possession. We could not do that without him in the side. if he was definitely 100% fit, maybe Dan James could take up that role. But his hamstrings have got to be torn to shreds. And if you asked him to do what Aronson is doing at the moment, I don't think he could do it. I think he'd be re-injured again. But yeah, Aronson is
yeah.
You can't take him out.
We probably should have given him a bit more praise on the top of the pod with the Man City stuff, because out of possession anyway, he had an amazing game against them, like did exactly what you wanted him to do. And I know they got a little bit more of a hold of the game, but I still felt like we were kind of fairly comfortable in our shape for most of that. Like their best chance came from the one attack that they got down the channel, which, like I said, was a split second. We switched off, and the other one was a set piece. That's it. Like I think we actually kept them pretty well at bay. So he's done really well. He was rubbish on the ball against Man City. Like he did.
He had that one nice moment. He had one nice moment where he megged Nunes, I think.
Nice, but generally, I didn't like
him. He wasn't great. He wasn't.
And I don't want to dig him out.
Out of possession, he was excellent.
Yeah, he really was. Really, really was. Also, I just wanted to say that Sunderland fans that are listening, because there probably is going to be like 3 of you. I mean, there's loads of you. Sometimes you do get hold of this. You got hold of that last pod, which was fun. But if any of you are listening, I did just say, we should go back to 4-2-3-1 with Martin and look like the Championship. That wasn't me calling you a Championship team, by the way. Just want to make that really clear before you all shout at me. But what I would say is it might look more like a Championship fixture for us in terms of how it looks like last season, a bit more like that. Sunderland, you're very much not a Championship team, and I want to say that I actually really liked most of your recruitment. Nearly every signing has paid off. I think both us and you have had windows over the summer that, like, looking back, I mean, everyone was saying yours was good at the time anyway, but looking back, 2 of the best windows in the entire league, I think it has to be said. Lots of hits, not very many misses. So anyway, players, who's going to cause them problems from the team we just said? Martin, I feel like for me, like we cross the ball a lot, we know that. They're going to funnel us wide a lot because they're going to be staying in pretty compact shape in the middle of the pitch, not giving away too many shots. So for me, the wing backs are going to be pretty key. That's one. Both of them. And if we're going to have a lot of the ball and have them in because they're going to be fairly low blocky, feels like Bogle and Goodmanson need to have decent games here and probably need to have decent combinations with them as well. So your James Justins need to support a little bit more. So your Anton Stacks need to support a little bit more in wide areas. Same with Brendan Aronson. That's the kind of players I think they're going to cause them the most problems and damage and maybe get us a chance to score. Anyone else you think, or do you agree with any of that or disagree with any of that?
I agree with all what you said. Our wing backs are always key for us attacking. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin is as well. He's essential when we are pressed high. I can't see Sunderland pressing as high at all in this one, so I think we will be able to progress the ball more in Daniel Farke's preferred method, which is slower and more patient. Although I do still think we should use Calvert-Lewin as an out ball. Just to get up the ball quicker, up the pitch quicker than what we would normally do under Farke from last season, Daniel Farke. I think Aronson could have a good game in this one. I think this is the sort of game where I think he could do quite well. But yeah, the wing backs are the main ones who can hurt any side, and Goodmanson is probably one of the fastest players in this league, which is saying a lot because there's a lot of very quick players in this league. But he made Matheus Nunes look slow in the Man City game at points, and he had to foul him a number of times. But yeah, him and Bogle are both excellent. I think James Justin could have caused some problems as well. Justin and Bogle have got a good partnership going on that right flank, who sticks deeper, who pushes forward. They sort of take it in turns, so they both attack. So yeah, that's the areas for me.
Yep. I can't add anything else. The other thing to say, well, no, actually, I'll save that. Anyone who might struggle then, who are the main players here? In terms of their matchups, like obviously Calvert-Lewin will give his all against any centre-backs in this league, but Ballard is one of the most dominant centre-backs in the air, so that's one thing to note. And if we're going to get set pieces, he's obviously going to be on one of our strongest players in the air. We do probably have more height and more players capable than they do in the starting lineup. Like if BL came in, for example, wouldn't be too worried about that because he'd be great as an option in the box. He was an attacking sub at the weekend against Man City. So, you know, like something like that is an interesting battle between Calvert-Lewin and Ballard. Alderete is pretty good in the air as well. So that's an area where I think maybe it's not going to be as good for us if we want to go a bit more direct into him at points. I don't think they're going to be able. He's going to have as much joy maybe as he would against some other centre-backs in the league. He still will have some because it's Calvert-Lewin, but maybe not as much. That's just one example from me. Is there anything else you know, anyone else you might think struggle?
I don't think Calvert-Lewin will struggle, but yeah, that's probably the only one I'd say is close to a struggle. I think the midfield battle is going to be interesting.
Yeah, very much.
That is probably the closest one for me, but I think we should have the better individuals in a lot of areas in this one, considering the injuries they've got. I think if they would have had a full strength team, it would have been a bit different here. But the midfield ones for definite, I think Siddiqui and Diarra are both very intense and offer a lot in against the ball. But I do think that Ampadu and Stack have the better of them, of that midfield, in terms of overall physicality.
Who can forget the physicality of Ilya Gruev, of course?
Yeah, there's a reason why I left him out of that equation. Gruev is intense. Well, I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But he's not the most imposing midfielder in the world. But yeah, those two, Ampadu and Stack, are the ones who I'm looking at to try to impose themselves on the opposition and try to limit Granit Xhaka's influence in this one. He'll be a key player for Sunderland in this, I expect. So we need to be closing him down as soon as he gets the ball, try to stop him putting those raking passes into the wide areas for them to run onto. But yeah, largely I think we should have the better of their players. It is just about trying to break down their low block, which I would imagine will be very low and stinky.
That's the area of the game where I'm a little bit more concerned by us, because we don't have that like off the cuff player who's going to do stuff in those little pockets around the box that will spring up. That's where your Willian Gnonto would be a good one, where your Facundo Buonanotte would be a good sub. I don't think he'll be on the bench again, which I don't really want to discuss on this pod today, but that's, you know, the kind of player I think we need on the bench for this one. I don't want to be seeing, when we're drawing 0-0 and it's late on, Joel Piroux coming off the bench. It doesn't make sense to me in that sense. I guess this next question ties in with the last two a little bit for me, because I'm going to say, are there any changes to our tactics for this one, either our possession? But no, it's not really a change, but something that I think we should still continue to stick at, because of something you said earlier in the pod about how they do often give up the ball in deep areas when they face a high press. I do think, even though they will happily go over that if they have to, I think it's something we should be looking to exploit. I don't think at least two, possibly three of their defenders are very comfortable on the ball. I think we should be looking to get Aronson buzzing around, Stack and Calvert-Lewin, and the two wing-backs pushed up so that they can really press aggressively here. I know it's risky, and I know that means they might put a ball into midfield, have Diarra carry it for 20 yards, and then release it.
We're man-to-man press against Man City. I'm sure we're going to be as aggressive.
Yep, that's why I think we should continue to do it.
We're going to be very aggressive.
I know that midfield is quite fun for them, and it's definitely the strongest part of their team. In and out of possession, they can carry the ball, or they can pass, in Xhaka's case, pass the ball and progress the ball. And the other two can just run around buzzing, you know, all over the place. But like, why not like get in their faces? Stack is so much more physical, and Ampadu as well, than both Diarra and Siddiqui. Go for it. Like, Xhaka's not the most athletic. Like, get running around him, get Aronson buzzing around him. Not got the best turning circle. Like, get at him. Like, these are the areas where I think we can. And like we've said on this pod like years back, like a way to score that is, you know, a viable way to score goals and create chances is through your pressing and you're out of possession and winning the ball back and then creating moments through that. And I think that's something we can definitely do here when we get the opportunity to. Because in settled play, I am a little bit concerned about it sometimes looking a bit lethargic around the box, and maybe we're recycling the ball a lot because they're pushing us back and we're having to go around the defence, shoehorn it around to the other wing back instead, that kind of thing. So I'm just thinking of ways we can generate chances here, and that's one of the main ones for me. So I think we should be doing man-to-man hybrid pressing again and be aggressive here. Anything else you want to either see change or you want to see continue?
No, I think that is what it will look like. It would be very similar to the past two games, but against Villa and City, where we have been showing the hybrid man-to-man press. I think it'll be similar to that, and we'll be looking to cause some problems in all areas. So even if they do try to go long, we should just win the ball straight back, because I think we
Our
should have
centre-backs should be fine. Yeah.
Well, they'll have the aerial dominance, so I'm hoping we should be able to pin them in at times with that, and won't let them get out. And that's going to be quite key in this one, I think, is trying to stop them from being effective in transition when they do look to attack us quickly. I think if we can shut that threat down, then we win this game.
You were answering the last question quite nicely here, but that's good.
Also, that is my answer back to the last question. Nice. I just stuck it in a bit early.
The other thing that I like about when we press aggressively at home is the crowd love it. And the crowd really get behind us, and suddenly I think that gives us that extra 5-10%, and I do think that is important. We're getting into intangible stuff on all stats, aren't we? Shouldn't go there. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think we can keep them pinned in by having the centre-backs winning those aerial duels when they do decide to go a bit longer. The worry is, and where the game might be won or lost, which is the next question, and what the game of football might look like. The worry is if they can manage to get one of those passes into a channel for a winger, and it's over our wing-back, and it isolates one of our outside centre-backs with a winger, because that's not going to be necessarily the prettiest to look at, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
We know Isidore has caused problems for Ethan Ampadu.
Indeed.
As amazing Ethan Ampadu is at centre-back, and that's his natural position, right? That's where he should always be playing, right? He's a centre-back. He shouldn't be a midfielder. Definitely not in the Premier League. No, definitely not. No,
definitely not been his best position by far this season.
No.
Best form of his Leeds career, no, not happened this season in defensive midfield. No.
Get him at centre back.
But yeah, I'd say we can win this game if we can deal with those channel balls. I would say we can win this game if our pressing is good, and if our wing backs get into good positions to put balls into the box. You get Goodmanson running basically down the outside of their winger and fullback, and getting those low balls in. This feels like a game for Goodmanson to finally get his first assist of the season from a cutback. Please do that, mate, because we know you're good at those driving runs. So those are maybe the main ways I would see us scoring. People will also ask about set pieces. We've not been great from them for a while. We haven't generated loads and loads and loads of chances and goals from them. At the same time, Sunderland are fairly decent at defending them. Ballard, obviously, and Alderete are pretty good in that respect. But again, that's another way we might be able to score. We did 2 last season against them, so why not do it again? Why not Strout get his first goal of the season and his first goal since playing Sunderland?
That would be lovely.
So anything else you want to say on this last question, which is what will this game of football look like, and where will the game be won or lost? I think we'll have a lot of the ball, and that's obvious.
Yeah, and I think obviously I've already answered where will this be won or lost, but in terms of what this game will look like, we will have a lot of the ball in this one. It wouldn't surprise me if this is the game of the season where we have the most possession of any other game for us. So I could see 60% possession to their 40, roughly. So that they'll be looking to attack us in transition when they do get hold of the ball. We'll be looking to try to pin them in, but also I wonder if we may try to encourage them to get forward more and then hit them in transition.
So artificial transitions a little bit.
Yeah. Well, but I think we'll struggle to try to bait them out of their low block. That is the issue that we will face with that, because they are quite disciplined in keeping that block and not allowing space to come up. But if we can get them to attack us a bit more, maybe, then we can try to exploit that space. But it's going to be a difficult one to do. But the game will be won or lost. If we shut down their transitional threat, then we win this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, because our pressure will just tell eventually, hopefully.
Yeah. Because if they can't get out and can't attack us in transition, that's going to be their biggest weapon gone. And then we should be able to turn the screw slowly, more and more, pin them in, and eventually a cross will go in, Calvert-Lewin will nod it in.
Yeah, I agree.
That sounds too much of a prediction for me.
We don't we don't do obviously I've lost my train of thought. Hang on. I was going to say in terms of the way the game will look, and we've said this a lot this season, the first goal matters. We said it a lot last season. I don't actually think it matters too much here, because I think they're going to look broadly the same, whether they've got a winning game state or a drawing game state. I know I said earlier in the pod they're kind of a bit more mid-blocky when it's a draw, a bit more anyway, but I still think it's going to be fairly low block. And I think we'll force the game to be that as well, partly from our out of possession stuff.
I think maybe in the opening 10 minutes, they could be a bit aggressive, just to try to nick an early goal. They may have moments where they're in a high press in the opening 10 minutes, but then that'll quickly quieten down.
But where the first goal does matter, and this is the point I was going to make, is if we score first, because if we do, I'm not saying it's over. It's not. But I really, really would struggle to see them fight their way back into this one. They have actually got back into games this season. They have been able to do that. But I don't know. It feels like that kind of juice has run out a little bit for them. That was more at the start of the season when things were all fresh and new. Not seeing it as much lately. So I do think if we, score first, we can just turn the screw, as you said. Nice way of putting it. Right then, where can they find our Patreon if anyone wants to find extra content, which we will have soon because Hosty's promised it and I'm kind of promising it as well now because I'm going to do my own piece.
Patreon.com/ASAW Patreon.
And obviously with Norwich next weekend, there won't be a pod on that. I will say we get to the quarters and we get a decent enough tie. We might do a pod. Maybe. Not promising it. Definitely we get to the semi. Maybe we get to the quarters. But all's left for today is to say like and subscribe on YouTube and leave a comment. Say what you think. If you disagree, if you agree, I want to hear from you. I will reply to you if you say something. But all's left me to say, thank you very much. Yourself, Martin.
Thank you as well, Adam.
And thank you, dear listeners. We'll be back to review this game. And then, like I said, it'll be a bit quieter after that Norwich game. And then we'll be previewing Brentford or Palace. I can't remember which. It's
one of those two.
Something like that after that. So, we're back soon. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys. And we'll see you soon. Bye.